And now we come to our story behind the story segment, where we talk about sort of the creative endeavors of our guests. Last time we talked about our own individual self-publishing histories, which was fun. You guys can go watch that if you haven't watched the episode before this yet. But when we have guests on here, it's just a chance for the authors. Typically, we might have some folks on who aren't authors, but this is a chance for the authors to talk about their creative projects, what they're doing, like get down to kind of like some of the craft elements, even about it, like what your current work in progress is. So we've talked about just so far in the course of the podcast, we've talked about a number of your projects. We talked about the Talon series. You have your Thomas Kane thrillers. What are you working on now? And yeah, fill us in.
Well, so right now, we kind of touched on this before, but I'm sort of doing the thing you probably shouldn't do, in that I'm writing something that is not in a series. But like I said, so on my sci-fi pen name, which is A. Warren, I have the Talon series and the Interstellar Getaway Pilot series. And the third book in the Interstellar Getaway Pilot series is finished, and that's with my editor. And they had told me in advance, like, hey, we're pretty slammed. It's going to take us like 3 or 4 weeks before we even get to it. So I figure I've got at least a month before that's coming back to me. And then I'm also, so on my Andrew Warren side, I write the Thomas Kane thriller series. And then I have a spin-off series called Kane Rapid Fire. And Kane Rapid Fire are shorter novella length books that I co-write, with other thriller writers. So I'm working on one of those right now with, I did 3 with a great author named Aidan Bailey, and he's just launched his own series that's doing awesome. And he's a great guy, and I'm super happy for his success. So definitely, if you like, hard action, spy thrillers, look up Aidan Bailey. His stuff's kicking butt right now. And now I'm working with a new author on a new series of rapid fire books. So the way those work is we both kind of throw around plot ideas and kind of form the outline together. And then, one or the other of us will start the process, and we just kind of hand it off back and forth. So right now it's with the co-writer. So I kind of found myself with some downtime, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to do something different. And so I'm currently writing a horror novel, which it's funny because I'm a huge horror fan. And this kind of relates to something we talked about before. And when I told people I was working on a book way back when I was writing my first one, everyone who knew me was like, oh, it's a horror book, right? And I was like, no, it's a spy thriller. And it was because at the time, I looked at all the things I enjoyed, and I was like, okay, horror tends to be a series of one-offs, or at least at that time, that's how I saw it. Whereas a spy thriller series can kind of go on indefinitely. So I decided to start with the spy thriller series. But, almost every screenplay I've written, most of my professional writing gigs, most of the copywriting I've done have all been in the horror field. So it's actually been really fun having never done a prose, horror novel. It's been really fun. It's kind of like coming home, like it's been really enjoyable. I have no idea, what its commercial progress will be, and I don't really have a plan for it. It's ironically, since we've been talking about publishing plans. But like I said, because I have those other ongoing series and I'm in this break, I figured it doesn't matter. If the one-off, who cares? I've got my other series to go back to. So
It's the exception that proves the rule, right?
exactly.
Every
So
now you need to take a breather, and that's okay. Right?
yeah, exactly. And especially if you've already put a plan in place, it makes it much easier to do that. So this book is trying to think of it. It kind of fits in that aquatic creature feature territory, like Jaws or Meg. It's that kind of story. And I grew up in a small seaside town in New Jersey, so that the type of thing always appeals to me. I love horror, but I love aquatic horror especially. So that's
Yeah.
what we're doing right now.
I'm sorry, a big Sopranos fan. So you mentioned New Jersey, and then I'm thinking Jaws meets the Sopranos there. That could be I'm trying to.
Well, ironically, it's not set in New Jersey. It's actually, I live in California, so it's
Yeah.
set on a fictional version of Catalina Island, which is a real
Okay.
island off the coast of California. But I didn't want to be tied too close to reality, so I made a second, sister island that does not
Sure.
actually exist. But I've been to Catalina Island, and it's fairly easy for me to go there, so the research is easy.
Yeah.
but it has that, kind of seaside beach read kind of feel. And it's also very B movie Roger Corman-esque, which is another great love of mine. So
Yeah, no, yeah, it's an interesting because I write science fiction, so all of the research I do is my in my own head.
right.
If I want to go visit a location, it's in my mind typically. There's some practical research you can actually do. But yeah, what's that like when you're able to kind of go to the place? Do you have like specific locations that you take notes, take pictures
Yeah. I mean,
with?
mostly pictures. So for this one, like I said, I've been to Catalina Island, so I'm not necessarily. There's a couple spots like I'm trying to describe you take a ferry to get there, so I'm trying to describe the ferry and where it docks and all that kind of stuff fairly accurately the way it is. But then in terms of the town and the shops and things like that, I'm sort of making those up, but using my experience at Catalina Island and the ability to look at pictures and to go there to kind of fill in the color and the details and just what it feels like, like what it smells like. The Catalina, I think dominant plants that grow there is a sagebrush and some other kind of flower. I can't remember the name
Yeah.
right now. So those are what you smell, when you go there. What the water's like. It's very cold. They filmed some scenes for Jaws and Jaws 2. They filmed off Catalina Island. So there
Okay.
are there's these kelp forests. The kelp grows up there. So in the beginning, when the monster's creeping up, it's going through these fronds of kelp, approaching and diving, those kinds of
Right.
things.
So
I like research, actually. It's enjoyable. And for me, I know a lot of people want to do all the research up ahead. I actually try to do like the minimum amount. Like, okay, here's the minimum stuff I need. And then as I'm writing, I'll either make notes to myself or just really quickly Google stuff and fill in details. And then when I do my revision pass, I'll research more and clean up whatever I feel, needs to be fixed.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's not a bad way to do it because if you can, I think you can cram too much information into your own brain ahead of time, and then you're trying to like info dump this stuff
100%,
as
100%.
opposed to just focusing on the story and then realize, oh yeah, I could make that connection here, or I could this little nugget of information is really relevant to what's going on in the plot or in this scene or something like that. Yeah, that's a good note. Yeah. So is the monster? I have to ask because so is the monster like Jaws? Are we talking about? And I don't want you to necessarily reveal everything here. Is this like based on an actual animal that could
It
exist,
is.
or
I
are
won't
we?
give away too much. Well,
Yeah.
first of all, I'll give you the working title. The working title is Razor Claws.
Okay.
And the creature that it's based on is a real animal, and it's actually a remarkable animal. It's an animal I've always been fascinated in. It's in reality, it's very small, uh, but it is one of the. I'm trying to think how to describe it. It's one of the in terms of like its ability to strike at prey. It is one of the fastest moving animals on the planet. And even at its small size, like a few inches long, its claws strike with the force of a rifle shot, and it can
Yep.
break aquarium glass. You have to be very careful if you get one in your aquarium. It can actually destroy your tank.
I think I might
So
know.
it is a monstrous sized version of that creature.
Okay. Okay. No, I like that. Especially like what I remember as a kid, and I'm sure this was done. I'm not sure where I saw this. I remember I read Goosebumps
Mhm.
as a kid, and there was one book where like there were just huge ants, which was definitely something that was done before. But yet taking something small, because when you're talking about horror, there's I think there's you can go like the supernatural angle and just you have a lot of wiggle room there to play with. But when you're doing
Sure.
something more like believable or practical or like, on the edge of what could be possible,
Mhm.
it makes me think of those prehistoric dragonflies that are like the length of your arm. Like, what if those
Yeah, yeah,
alive
giant
today? What would
insects.
what would it be like to visit the lake house when you're gonna potentially
Those
get
things are
harmed?
crashing through the window.
Yeah.
That could be another book right
Glad
there.
you said
Hey,
dragonfly and not roach.
Or
oh, yeah.
centipedes or any of those things.
Right. Fun. Fun. Do you have a tentative release date for that, or kind of just
I
take it?
mean, I'm trying, we'll see. My plan, my hope is to make it a fairly short book. I'm aiming for like 50 to 60,000 words.
Sure.
I've done that before and it's ended up ballooning larger. So I don't know if I'll actually be able to stick to that. But if I can, it shouldn't be too long, probably early 2025.
Cool. Cool. I'll have to check that out.
But this one, like, because it's sort of so separate from my other work, I haven't really decided. I may try to approach some small press publishers with this one.
Yeah.
That may extend that time frame. We'll see. But
Right.
we'll see. I haven't made any firm decisions on the publishing plan for this one.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What about you guys? I mean, you're authors. What are you guys working on?
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, Kelly, go ahead. You got more to talk about right now than I do.
Oh, well, I'm working on this is part of that whole not having a plan about your series. So I had a character who became incredibly like a fan favorite sort of thing, and he actually was needing his own books, and so he's getting I've got him planned in, and I've been working on the book 4, but then I'm also creating a prequel that involves that same character. So I have 2 books that I'm currently working on. My prequel is the one that I've been working on the most and trying to get that one done. And then yeah, it's finding the writing time. That's been my thing. So yeah, that's what I'm working on.
Thanks.
Along those lines, something that I've been doing, because I'm writing the same universe, and I actually started to work on a spin-off series. I wrote a short story for it. My main series is space opera. Like, have you seen the Battlestar Galactica reboot? That's what my main series is like, pretty much. But I grew up, video games were a huge inspiration for me as a writer. And I was at that age where, for those who don't know, Halo Combat Evolved was a very large part of my adolescence. I'm just at that age, right? And so the idea of like space marines, super soldiers, that sort of thing was something I wanted to write about. And I had this idea, and I've woven it into the world in a way that I feel is satisfying, at least. But the problem I'm having now is that I don't have the bandwidth to work on both of them at once. At first, I was thinking I was going to kind of alternate between the two and like work on a book for the main series and then go over here to the spin-off series. Can't do that. I've got to get the next few books done in the main series. I take breaks. Then it was 9 books initially on purpose, because I do them what I call seasons. So season 1 is the first 9 books, and now I'm writing season 2, and that's going to be 9 books, and then there's going to be a season 3 that hopefully won't drive me mad. But once season 2 is done, I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to come back to that because it's going to be fun.
I like that. That's sort of the way I like it when comic books adapt, TV shows that have stopped, and then they'll call it like the next season, and they just do it as if it was a seasonal arc from like Buffy to the Buffy comic.
Yeah.
I think that's a really great way to organize your stories.
Yeah, that's the way I think of it, at least. Not that I have any like delusions of grandeur that it's like I know it's not a TV show, right? I know that. I'm just using the terminology.
Sure.
Yeah.
You never know.
Oh, yeah. Who knows? Who knows? That's the thing. It's a raffle ticket.
Right.
Raffle tickets you have, exactly. Emma, what about you? Where are you at? It's your work in progress.
I actually just canceled a pre-order this morning. And the ironic thing is the book is done and edited, but I just don't have time to launch it the way I want to with all the bells and whistles. So bye, wench. We're gonna cancel that and beg at Bezos' doorstep in 2025 to get those pre-order privileges back. But I was just thinking about that. I'm like, we just talked about that, how sometimes you don't need to be in such a hurry to go to market, even if it's done. Like sometimes there's still things you want to do. Yeah, there's some things I want to try out with it, but I do have an actual work in progress I'm writing on right now, which is why I had to cancel this pre-order, because my focus is split. But
Sure.
Beauty and the Beast retelling, and that's going okay.
Oh, cool.
Fun.
Classic story. Oh,
Yeah.
always a good one.
There's a lot of good source material there. How often do you pull from like fairy tales or things like that?
I don't. I loathe fairy tale retellings, but Beauty and the Beast, Beauty and the Beast is just, it infiltrates almost everything in romance. And Kelly knows this. It infiltrates, and I just at some point I realized this is a effing Beauty and the Beast retelling. You might as well just
true.
look to that for the marketing. So
It's a
I write
very
a lot of I do a lot of freelance copywriting, so I write blurbs for a lot of authors and a lot of romance. And yeah, you're right. It's the Beauty and the Beast dynamic is kind of central to almost every romance
It's one of
that
those
is.
it's one of those universal fantasies that they have when you hear Theodora Taylor talk about universal fantasies, like, you know, the beast who's actually really kind to you, that sort of, it's that butter. That's why it's
Well,
a
I also
classic.
think it's the female reader putting herself in the role of like he's a beast, but I can change him. You know, I can make him.
it's a lie, ladies. Stick to that.
well, well,
Not real life.
well,
Because I write morally gray and I write a lot of this toxic stuff in my books, and my other author friends are like, you don't need to put a disclaimer at the end that this is just fiction.
They know it's fiction.
Yeah.
You see these behaviors in
Hopefully.
real life, run, please.
But I've heard that the Beauty and the Beast actually referred to as the female the female hero's journey. In an analogous sort of way. Not that female characters can't go through the hero's journey, but it's an archetype in and of itself that, because there's a lot of utility in taming a beast
Yeah.
and having him on your side, and it's a lot of, so I could see how it would permeate.
Well, in mine, the heroine is the beast, so
Oh, there's a
It's never
twist.
being flipped, you know. I think.
So it's Shrek.
Oh, or did you ever see? I don't know. Are you a horror fan, Jack? Or
Oh, and I can't really claim to be one.
Return of the Living Dead Part 3 is kind of like that, right? I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the guy's girlfriend becomes a zombie and she gets more and more extreme, and he's trying to like bring her back down to earth, you know. Like
Sure. The Shrek comment, Emma, I'm sorry, was not meant disparaging, but well, you know, it's a twist on because she winds up staying an ogre at the end, but that's probably a different story than what you're going for, I'm guessing.
Oh, Plot Bunnies. That's actually not a bad idea.
You're going to be watching Shrek later with your kids, aren't you?
you're doing a lot worse than Shrek. And
Then you have to deal with the Disney IP, and you can't make it too Shrekish, but you could pull out the
yeah.
The essence of that, the tropes, all that.
Maybe you should write it, Jack.
Hey, I'm happy I'm happy to give input. You don't even have to credit me. I'll give you some I'll give you some ideas. All right.